Here.
Mr. Babalani?
Here.
Dr. Hayes? Here. Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Mr. Pop?
Here.
Approval of minutes for the regular meeting of May 16th and the special meeting of May 17th, 2016.
I make that motion.
Any additions or corrections? Support for it?
I'll support it.
Roll call?
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Approval of manifest 2016-10, the amount of $459,952.09. Any questions, Mr. Mangini?
I got a couple items here. Under a second page, second line from the bottom, under refuse collection, maintenance, equipment and buildings, interstate power systems, labor, repair parts, number 130, $4,200. Is that the old truck, Ray? The old
130
garbage
is
truck?
I believe that's the new truck.
Oh,
I don't know.
what about the warranty on that
I'll
thing?
have to check.
Because I know they had been having trouble with it, but I was told it was under warranty.
I'll have to check.
Okay. And the only other item I have is on page 1, under buildings and grounds, best heating and air conditioning unit repair, $3,300. The whole thing puke or?
No, we had a leak. He had to come in and replace some parts and recompress it, and we had quite a bit of work on it.
That's all I have.
Mr. Babalani?
I had the same one as Lee about the air conditioner. On the first page, raise expense for vehicle gas. Was that through the pool car?
Yep.
That was the pool car?
Yep.
Okay. Page, let me see. Page 2, about a little better than halfway down, a DPW garage door repair claim. Was that already claimed where it should have a negative $1,900.51, or is that being sent in for claim?
It's being sent in.
Okay. Page 3, Ray, under the recreation, we were having trouble at the ball fields with the sprinkler system. $219, was that labor?
No, that wouldn't be labor.
Sprinklers for ball field.
Yeah, that wouldn't.
Sprinkler heads?
Sprinkler heads.
Okay. That's all I have.
Mrs. Brew?
I don't have any. They already took the ones I had.
Mr. Pop?
No, I'm good. The one I had was the air conditioning.
No further questions. So if there's no further comment, need a motion to approve manifest.
I make a motion, we approve manifest 2016-10 in the amount of $459,952.09.
Support.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
If anybody from the audience has any questions on the manifest, the meeting minutes, or any agenda item, please come to the podium. Otherwise, at the end of the meeting, we'll have a time for comments or questions on any topic. Hearing none, let's go on to public hearing for the 2016-17 through the 2020-21 multi-year operating capital improvement budget. We need a motion to go into closed session.
Oh, the public hearing.
I'll make a
Public
motion, we
hearing.
go into public hearing.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, the council, as you know, we've met on 6 different occasions to go through the budget. We went through the budget in detail. Earliest meeting was in March, or March 23rd. We met numerous times in early, mid-May, taking our funds individually and looking at where we're heading with our budget. Just a quick overview. with the water and sewer projects budgeted, we do have an overall city budget of roughly $17.5 million. Typically, we run about 12.5 to 13 million, but when you look at our budget this year, total, this is all 13 funds together, runs about 17.5 million. Major discussions in our budget this year involved the electric fund with the hydro. As we discussed in a number of different occasions, the units are operational. We are putting Unit 2 back in place. We are going to pull the covers this summer, take a look at Unit 1, and we did program some additional work on a couple turbines for for 2 years from now. But we can move into, if we have to, do some additional work this coming up year. From a budget standpoint, though, we're anticipating that we'll be able to go through this year concentrating less so much on the hydro equipment and then looking at our electric lines, distribution lines, which need some attention through the master plan. Master plan identified that from 2004, actually. Again, that fund, we talked about road improvements, and so council agreed to put some monies aside to address some road pavement lengths for this year. We're looking at possibly early July, having that back to council for consideration and approval. So that would be something early in next year's budget cycle to deal with. From a taxes and rate standpoint, when we looked at all of the funds, obviously we've been talking quite a bit about water and sewer and the projects. It's been a number of years that we've been talking about our project. We're getting very close. Our rates are going to have to reflect those projects coming to fruition. And when we looked at our overall rate schedule, we did look at cable, which is pretty solid, pretty static right now. We looked at, of course, our road, major and local road funds, and it needs some help from outside of its normal revenue streams. But we looked at our rates, and our rates are solid, other than the water and sewer, where council agreed to program an increase. All the other rates are staying the same, taxes are staying the same. So that's, I think, from a general budget overview standpoint, I think that's what folks want to find out, is what's going to happen to them personally. So I can field questions at this point. What I did hand you are the budget notes. Those are something that always comes right at the end. I have to know what numbers are going in. We've had changes right up to the end. Just gives you some basic details about what you've already been going through in the budget in less of a spreadsheet format. So I'll open it up for questions at this time, if you have any.
You want the council questions at this time, or
However, I know, it's something that, the document, the budget, 13 funds, it's quite a large document. It has a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of numbers showing where we're at. That's why I put those notes together. And quite frankly, I know it's a public hearing, but we are going to have the budget available at City Hall and at the library. And that's why I was working so hard to try and get these notes completed, so that when somebody picks it and opens it, it's a little easier to read, than just looking at the numbers out of a spreadsheet.
anybody in the audience have any questions?
Norway. I was wondering about the budget, how much it increased from last year?
Well, that's a hard one, Pete, because the budget last year was $12.3 million, and it's going to $17.7 million, but $6 million of that is going to that water and sewer project. So I'd say about, from an operational standpoint, we're actually going backwards.
But didn't it go up 3% from last year we raised it 3%? Because I asked you last year how much the budget increased.
Yeah, last year it might have gone up, but this year it stayed pretty flat because we've had some employees that have left and they aren't replaced. And, you know, a lot of our work, we're basically concentrating on a couple major projects. Those are reflected, again, like I said, in the water and sewer. You see most of the difference between last year's budget and this year's budget built into that water and sewer project, which is offset with the bond issue. So that's really where I would say this year's budget is relatively flat.
Assessment won't go up at all?
Well, I don't know about the assessment, but the tax rate is not going up. Yeah, I don't have anything to do with the assessment. Those assessments are done based on, you know, the assessor's role. And actually, our assessments have gone down over the last 2 years. So we've actually gone backwards in our taxes in the last 2 years. Yeah, well, it's a market. The market is really flat. You're welcome.
Thank you, Pete.
Anybody else in the audience have any questions about the budget? Anybody else in the council have any questions or comments?
I have one little comment. Can't really speak for the other four of you, but there are certain things in here that I'm not too happy with, and I'm sure there's other things in there that the rest of you aren't too happy with, but it's something that has to be done. And if anybody really wants to know what I'm against in this budget, call me. I'm not going to get into it right now because it'd take too long.
Anybody else have any comments or questions about any specific item or any questions of Mr. Anderson?
Ray,
Yeah.
these notes that you gave us, are the numbers, I mean, is it pretty much close to what we have been working on the whole while?
Yes, it's exactly what you've been working on. It just puts it in a format that maybe it's a little more.
So there's no
That's-
changes, this is
no.
just some notes to make it clear, so when the
Correct.
public looks at it, they can see.
Correct.
Anybody in the audience have any questions? Or anybody in the council have any questions? Anybody on staff have any questions? Any other questions concerning the budget?
I make a motion, we come out of the session and go back into regular session.
Support.
Roll call?
Mr. Pop,
Yes.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes?
Mr. Babalani,
Yes.
Dr. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Next, we need a resolution 2015. We want 2015, do
Oh, that's a
16.
typo.
we? Yeah, there's a typo there. 2016-19. And general utility service rate resolution 2016-17. Is there a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion, Resolution 2016-19, General Utility and Service Rate Resolution for FY 2016-17 be approved.
Support.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes?
Mr. Babalani,
Yes.
Dr. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Menegini,
Yes.
Mr. Pop.
Yes.
Next, we have resolution 2016-20, City of Norway pay rates for non-union employees for year 2016-17. Is there a motion?
I got a couple things I'd like to say, Doc. I would like to see us look at handling the code enforcement internally. That costs us about a little over $12,000 a year. We used to handle it through the police department and one person on staff. We did accumulate some personnel from the golf course, and I think that it should be done internally, and we should eliminate this cost on our budget. It would save us money. we get into the police department and we are always purchasing vehicles. And on this agenda tonight, we have a squad car that's $22,100 is our share. And I think we should abolish that position and handle it internally to save the money out of the general fund. The people that we took over from the golf department, their wages were handled out of the general fund, and the general fund is always challenging for us. So I think this would be a real good move.
Any other comments?
Can we have Ray look into that?
Sure, we can make a motion to eliminate it right now, or we can defer it.
I guess I would like to make the motion that we approve the pay rate the resolution 2016-20, the City of Norway pay rate for non-union employees for 2016-17 with the removal of the code enforcement out of that budget and handle it internally.
Is there a second?
I think it should be left in there until we look at and have a plan before we take it out. That's my opinion.
Would anyone else like to second that? Yeah, the motion dies from a lack of second. Does anyone else like to make another motion?
I'll make a motion that Resolution 2016-20 City of Norway pay rates for non-union employees, excuse me, for fiscal year 2016-17 be approved.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
No.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Motion approved. Approval IT network management services.
Okay, the next item is, last year and a half ago, we switched our network support company, and GoTech on the main street here took that over. We actually bid that out last year, and they were the only bidder last year. They came in, they not only did the network support, but the major upgrade project. We had to upgrade our servers, expand the servers. There were quite a bit of problems with security, and quite frankly, the performance of them was shaky. So we made those improvements this spring. It was indicated that network support agreement we had, that because of the increase in our server, because of the upgrade, we went from one server to 5 server units. We consolidated our hydro and some other of the automation into that system. So it was indicated that that network agreement, that monthly network support, would need to go up. Council's desire was to bid that out again, and which we did. This past week, we received RFPs, or received proposals for the work. And again, GoTech was the only response on that. GoTech's proposal is for $1,115 per month, and we do have that budgeted within the budget.
How much of an increase is that over last year with all the new servers and that?
Well, we were at about $600-700 last year, so it's a couple hundred.
15, but that's a...
Yeah, it's quite an increase, but we did quite a bit of work, and we upgraded the phone network as well as the computer network. So
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not worth it. I don't
Right.
really know what this kind of stuff runs, but I just find it strange that GoTech's the only the only one offering anything. I mean, there's gotta be more.
We advertised,
I know.
we put it out in the Daily News as well, and up in Air Mountain, and that's where they said that they go to find their bids or quotes, so.
Are you generally satisfied with the service that you're getting?
Yeah, we're satisfied with the service.
Do you think that we're getting value for the money?
Yeah, I believe so, but again, it's, our system is not, it's not a small, inconsequential system. I mean, it takes people that know network engineering to know what to do with it. And so,
Was that put on any other, like on our website or anything like that? Because I know a lot of people probably don't get the papers. Is
Yeah,
there
but
any other
I
way we
asked,
can?
I called up to Air Mountain, and I called around, and where they get their advertisements is out of the Daily News. That's where they look. So,
I guess I think it's going up quite heavily, and I would like to see us postpone this and come up with another way to run an ad and try to solicit some, I believe there's other people out there that are possibly interested in it.
This bidder would have it be at a disadvantage because everyone else knows what he already bid then. So, I don't know, anyone agree with that, or does anyone want to make a motion to approve this for one more year?
I make a motion that we put it out on bids, we put it on our website and run it for another couple weeks and see what it brings.
Is there a second to that motion?
Would 2 weeks hurt anything?
yeah,
Right.
we put the price out.
That's the
That's really
bottom
not,
line.
that's
Okay.
not ethical,
Okay.
in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Doc mentioned it.
I'm not trying to defend any one company, but, we put it out there, we did it, in good faith.
Yeah, they could
Put it
come
in an
at
area
$1
that they said
less,
they'd
yeah.
look at, and we only, if you only have one bid, you have one bid. And we did it in good faith, so,
We had one other guy pick it up.
yeah, but you didn't return it.
Is there a second to the motion? Otherwise, the motion fails due to a lack of second. Does anyone else like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that GoTech be approved to provide network and IT support for the city of Norway for a price not to exceed $1,115 per month.
Support. What else we can do?
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes,
Mr. Babalani?
No.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes. Resolution 2016-20, Golf Course Lease Agreement Amendment. Mr. Anderson.
If you remember back in February, we passed a resolution authorizing the execution of a lease agreement with the Oak Crest Golf Club for the management of the course. The city, through this lease agreement, maintains ownership of the land, buildings, equipment, and the agreement is to operate, and then there's a lease payment associated with the agreement. Through the discussions with our auditor, obviously we talked about this before, where it's important, incumbent upon the city to sever financial ties, connections, and that those are, description of those is basically from an auditor's perspective of what is a financial encumbrance between the two entities. And this is something we came up with last year when Treasury got the audit. They came and they contacted us, and there was some conversations about that relationship. After we approved the agreement in February, it became aware that there are two lease agreements that the city holds in their name for some equipment. And through conversations with the two companies, more so with Wells Fargo just was absolutely adamant, said in their agreement that they couldn't assume or transfer the assumption of the loan. the lease agreement, and we tried to call them, and that was actually under the suggestion of the auditor as well, to just try and see if they would allow the transfer of the paperwork over to the golf course, golf club, and they absolutely said no. It's something we talked about during the budget hearing, the late budget hearings, and so we need to revise the agreement to reflect closing out those lease agreements and adding that to the schedule that we have in this agreement. Again, the agreement doesn't change other than the number, the amount that's being paid per month in the amortization schedule. The club was making those payments anyway. It just, for the paperwork standpoint, we have to sever that legal tie. And so the auditor again requested that we just redo the lease, don't make an amendment, completely redo the lease. So basically what we did was we took the lease language, made some changes to section 17, 18, and 19, 16, 17, and 18 of the agreement, and added a paragraph to the resolution. So it's basically the same agreement. It just completes the divestiture of that equipment lease agreement.
Did you talk to the golf club about this?
Yeah, we met with the golf club. Because we didn't have the actual documents, there's not an official approval from their standpoint, but we did get the approval to move forward. You know, they agreed completely in the concept. I mean, they were good with the concept. It's just that they couldn't vote on anything because we didn't have the paperwork, completed to hand them. So.
And this needs to be completed by June 30th, so
Yes, and that means we have to, we're
prove it today or
we'll prove it tonight, and so we can work with Wells Fargo and VGM to close out those lease agreements and make sure that we don't have anything on the books on June 30th.
Any other questions from council?
Dollar-wise, it changes nothing, it's just the wording.
It doesn't change the dollar-wise. I mean, their dollars go up in the agreement, but they've been making those payments anyway.
Right.
So they make them to the city now instead of to the bank, is what you're saying?
Well, we were making the payments in
Right.
the lease, they were paying us. So now they'll still pay us, but we're gonna pay off that agreement, and then we'll,
No, for sure now this is going to settle it because
Yes.
this is the second time
yes,
that
for
things
sure.
have changed. Okay.
For sure. This is the last piece that was out there.
Unless Grant comes up with something we should change.
Don't.
I know you don't like to hear this, but leases are always, they tend to be kind of living documents a little bit, and I don't anticipate anything else. This was sitting out there, we thought we'd be able to have this transferred, those leases transferred, but we couldn't, and the property is still ours. Those are still our pieces of equipment. The city just leases them to the golf course like we've been doing for the last couple of years. So, like I said, I'm not going to reiterate what what Ray already said. We changed the commencement date to June 1st versus the March 1st, and referencing those paragraphs, we simply changed. It's just the dynamics of the amount hasn't changed because the golf course has been paying those lease payments all along. They will just pay them to us, so nothing really changes in that regard.
Is there any other questions? Otherwise, we need a motion to approve Resolution 2016-21.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2016-21 golf course lease agreement amendment.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Approval, Police Department, squad car purchase. Mr. Anderson, or I guess Mr. Chief.
You want to take it? Okay. Earlier this year, we held a public hearing for going out to rural development to get some grant monies for a new squad car. We've received notice that we can move forward, pending council's approval, we can move forward with the securing of the police car. This squad car, it's another Dodge Charger. We're getting it through the My Deal purchase program. In a number of vehicles, we've looked at the My Deal program, which is already a pre-bid program through the state. It's a pretty simple process. Sometimes we don't elect to go through this process because going downstate to get the vehicle is more costly than a local purchase, and in some of the vehicles that we purchase, our local dealers are competitive. But when it comes to the case of a cop car, police car, these Chargers, there's a $150 drop to Riverside, and they're really, it's not competitive. So, you know, we've the last couple of vehicles we purchased, we did through this program. I think, I can ask the chief, but I think that the squad is, they're very pleased with the Chargers. They work well in the snow with the front.
We're going to go with the all-wheel
Oh, really?
drive. They go get around the snow.
And then we're going to pull the SUV actually out of service because, or out of the rotation. The Charger actually handles better than the SUV, so.
It does get around nicer conditions than Michigan does.
So all I can do right now is turn it over to Jim for questions. If you have questions on the vehicle, the numbers are there for you. The total price of the vehicle is, the car itself is $24,538. There's roughly $12,000 worth of new equipment. Total price is $37,000. There's $15,000 of grant, so as Mr. Babalani indicated earlier, we have roughly a $22,000 local share. But remember that we need to spend our monies before we get to the grant monies. So we are able to add some effects to the vehicle, such as additional tires. That saves us down the road. So there's some things we can do to maximize using that $15,000. So we can open it up for your questions at this time.
Any questions from the council? Otherwise, we need a motion to approve the purchase of the
I
squad.
got a couple questions here, Doc. Chief Schaefer, this is gonna replace the new Charger we have right now?
No.
We're gonna
SUV.
keep- It's gonna replace the SUV. Okay, now what's gonna happen to all the equipment in the SUV? None of that can be transferred to,
Some of it can, some of it, no.
it's not worth it?
Some of it can, some of it can't. Some of it is rather old because it has been circulated to other cars in the past.
Well, right, I remember when we bought that, they had taken some off the old car.
Yep.
Okay. Now, this GM communications equipment, that's just radio
That's
and
the,
computer
that is
and-
the setup, they call it upfitting of the car. That's getting the overheads on, that's getting the console in it, that's getting radios put in, siren, all that stuff. That's all the equipment, the buying of the siren, the lights, 800 megahertz radios and stuff he puts in, all that is in that monies.
Will there be a GPS in this car?
We have GPS in our units, and this one will be GPS also, when it, Rick has got it set up, he just takes them out and puts them into the other vehicle. So, and the 10.8 video, the car camera has GPS enabling also in it. So it's actually tracked twice.
There was no in-car camera in the SUV?
Yes, there is, but that one again came from, it's been recycled. It's been recycled. So that's why
What are we gonna do with the SUV? Is that gonna be a pool car?
We would like to auction that off and roll that out completely. It needs a lot of attention, and our mechanic has recommended that we just go ahead and auction it out.
The SUV, though, is not designed as a police car. We purchased that used, is that correct?
No, this one was purchased brand new. Right now it has 130,000 miles on it. They call it a police package utility vehicle. It's not truly designed to be a patrol vehicle of heavy use, everyday use, and that's why it is needing the attention it needs. It's because you're using it as a patrol vehicle and it should be a support vehicle.
What year is that, Jim?
2011.
Well, we're not deciding the fate of that car with this motion. We just need to purchase the new one. So, but anyway, I'd like to make a motion to purchase the new squad car.
I'll make a motion that the purchase of the 2016 Dodge Charger be approved for purchase through the State of Michigan My Deal program with the necessary additional equipment for a price not to exceed $37,100.
Support.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes.
Mr. Babalani,
Yes.
Dr. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Mr. Pop.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda, approval special events, God's Country Christian Music Festival. Mr. Anderson.
This is it's a standard special events application. This festival has been here for 3 years? 3 years.
Yeah, this will be the 3 year, yeah.
You want to come up and just kind of explain what they see? But I think you were out at the, were you out at the fairgrounds last year?
Marion Park.
Marion Park, yeah.
My name is Jim Busick, I'm Vulcan. I'm the director of the God's Country Music Ministries. We had a woman that was working with us, and she passed away back in April. As far as I knew, she went ahead and talked to people here in Norway, and thought, go ahead and make arrangements for a festival. I recently found out that she did not do that, or if she did, we have no paperwork from it. We'd like to go ahead and hold a festival like we had planned for the 10th and 11th, maybe next weekend. And
You'll be here right at the band shell.
right at
Yeah.
that. That's about it.
Any council member have any questions? Otherwise, we need a motion to approve the special event.
I make a motion, we approve the special event, God's Country Christian Music Festival.
Support.
Mr. Babalani,
Yes.
Dr. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Mr. Pop.
Yes.
Mrs. Brew.
Yes.
Next on the agenda, approval of request for audit extension. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of years ago, we had a very similar situation where, we've been working on this water and sewer project, and rural development requested that we extend our audit service or our auditor to get them under contract. Mr. Kenny's contract is up at the end of this fiscal year. So again, rural development, looking at that we're going to be coming up here soon for possibly going out to bid, maybe in this fall even, where they requested that we get an extension onto Mr. Kenny's, or go out for proposals, but they thought it would just be more expeditious to extend Mr. Kenny. They also recommended we go 2 years because this process is going to potentially take us past the end of fiscal year next year. So we asked Mr. Kenny to give us a proposal for extending his audit services. I will tell you that we've been very pleased working with Scott, and has actually his numbers of over the 2 years on his extension, I believe, went down. So is that right, Mary?
Yes.
Yeah.
I asked him that question because they don't usually go down, but because of the golf fund, he won't be auditing the golf fund after this year, and the utilities authority also. So the price has actually gone down.
Do we put this out on bids or no?
We had in the past, yes, we
Okay.
have.
But we didn't this time, right?
We didn't this time because of our project, the continuity through the
Okay.
project.
Okay.
I will say that we've had Anderson Tackman in the years past, and they could not compete with Mr. Kenny as far as the price, even though they have been in town here. They indicated they could not match his price. And I've certainly been very pleased. I thought we were going to go out for bids again this year, but it makes sense to me to go to the 2-year extension.
think we were planning on it, but when we got the notice from RD, we pretty much had to ask for it and come to you for recommendation.
Well, I had mentioned a while back, I'd like to see it go out on bids, but I don't think we have much choice here.
Got a choice, but I don't think we're gonna find a better price for the quality of service.
Well, when this 2-year extension is up, we can put it out on bids.
Are you making a motion to approve the extension?
No. I'm not making a motion, no.
Any other comments or questions, or would someone else like to make a motion? I'll make a motion to approve the audit extension with Mr. Kenny for 2 years at the listed price.
Support.
Dr. Hayes,
Yes?
Mr. Menegini,
No,
Mr. Pop,
No.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes.
Mr. Babalani.
Yes.
Next on the agenda, approval of Marion Park tennis court change orders. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you remember back a few meetings ago, we approved moving forward with the contractor, the low responsive contractor on our tennis court project, Northeast Asphalt. At that time, the project bid was, the low bid was $143,096. Worked closely with Coleman Engineering. We looked through the bid tab sheets and the project, found a number of areas that needed to be addressed, and we're quite pleased. We have a change order amendment which brings the price down to $109,000. So again, like I said, we're extremely pleased that you know, we were able to get the number down. So tonight, we're going to ask for passing of change orders 1 and 2. The change order 1 is actually the deduct, removing a couple items completely, and then like fencing, we took and removed the fencing out, but then we put it back in because what we did was did some major modifications to the fencing and received savings. We also removed some site work that was actually double handled between what we were saying we were doing and what he had contracted out. So that's why the actual 2 amendments. But the actual total deduct is $34,151.80, and the total project contractor cost then would be $108,943.68.
Is that water line moved? Gonna be moved?
no.
Well, that's what we also have to ask in this process, because if you remember when we talked about that, the question was asked and we thought it was a small, like a 2-inch line, but in talking with the water department, it's actually an 8-inch ductile main that goes through there. Now, we do drain that every year. I talked with the engineers, and they had really no issue whatsoever of leaving it in place, but we obviously are not going to just leave it there if the council has a motion to remove it. So we're recommending that we leave it at this point because we do drain it every year. It is a ductile. It would make a difference if it were something other than the ductile iron. It's relatively new in comparison. It's put in, I believe, in the mid-90s, so it's relatively new. So.
But if there was a problem with that, we would have to tear up the tennis court.
Well, we'd go around it then, at that point, because, you know, we drain it every winter.
What do you mean you'd go around it?
We would tap a new line. We wouldn't dig up the tennis court.
Well, unless
tap it at
something
that point.
happened to the line and the court started, if the pipe collapsed or something for some crazy reason, it would affect the court.
Yeah,
The money would be gone if the pipe collapsed or anything happened like that.
it could. I mean, that's why we asked a lot of those questions, you know, to the engineers. And
Did they come up with a cost as to kill that line and go around it?
we did not have a cost at it, but we would do that in-house, you know. It would be basically material cost, get that line moved.
Is there a chance that the line could rupture, that would undermine the court and cause
I think,
problems?
you can always say there's a chance, but again, most of our problems, if not almost all of our problems, happen due to the course of the winter. And this line is, like I said, it's drained every year. So I think the chances are much less with a line like this than it is in the normal operations.
Well, we can discuss that at a future meeting if you proposed any
Well-
costs or replacing it, if that's at council. We don't have to stop that at this point. We can discuss it at the next meeting.
It doesn't affect the change order, but we're working on the project right now. And so I would prefer if the council as a whole says move the line, I'd like to know tonight, because we're doing the site work now, and, I'd like to know that those guys are gonna move it. If we wait, then that line is not gonna get moved, it'll just be there dry, basically, because we're gonna, by the time we get back together, we're probably gonna have gravel on top of the line. So I'd like to tell them.
You wouldn't tear off that line anyway? Is what you're
We'd
saying?
have to look at tearing that line out, actually moving it physically from the area, because, if you just left it in place, you have the same scenario that you drain it every year, you have pretty much the same scenario. So I'd probably
How
wanna get-
deep is the line?
It's about 6 feet.
Is compaction gonna be a factor in disturbing that line? I mean,
We'll have to make sure
you know,
we compact it back.
if it's compacted over the top of it with a pretty good sized machine, is that gonna crack that pipe and down the road we'll have
No, I
problems?
don't think that'd be a problem.
I don't know how, are they digging down? Are they mucking out anything or nothing?
Oh, no, they're only going down a foot.
Okay.
And in fact, I was surprised at how much topsoil was out there. There was quite a bit of topsoil that we skimmed off, but, most of it's the sand that's coming out. And we're just basically moving it from one cut area to a fill area. So, there's not a whole lot of depth cuts, especially where the line is located.
Well, I've been here a little more than 6 years, and I've gone through an awful lot of change orders, and I'll tell you, this is the first time I've ever seen it get cheaper.
Well, we should pass a motion to approve the change order. Is there a motion for that?
I'll make a motion that change orders number 1 and number 2 be approved for the Marion Park Tennis Court project for a total deduct of $34,151.80, making the total cost not to exceed for the project $108,943.68.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes. Next on the agenda then, we discuss moving this line. Would anyone like to make a motion, or is there further discussion? It sounds like if we move it, we should just leave the old one there anyway, is what you're thinking?
That's what I'm thinking.
Because there's no reason to take it out. And we can
The
always-
old water line?
Yeah.
I think if you're gonna move it, you should take it out, because if something happens to the pipe, if the pipe cracks, the dirt will run inside the pipe, and then you're gonna have undermining.
Well, my point is that if we move the line, we're not gonna use that same pipe, they're gonna leave it in place.
Yeah, but the pipe is gonna have a volume of air inside of it, which could, like we have trouble with the sewer system in town here by the storm drains, that material gets into that system, and it's gonna undermine the area.
Well, if it's an empty pipe just sitting there, it isn't gonna hurt anything. I wouldn't think anyway. Is that true, Mr. Anderson?
Well,
If you're not using it for water.
You hate to say that there's never a chance that something couldn't happen.
No, my point is that if we're gonna move the line, we'd leave the old one there anyway.
Right. I think what Mr. Babalani is saying is that if you're leaving it there and it's hollow, at some point, there could be some corrosive action and cause that pipe to collapse anyway.
How big is the pipe?
It's 8-inch. It's an 8-inch ductile main. I'm not sure why
Okay.
we use such a big pipe, but that's what they
Oh,
use.
wow, I didn't realize
If
it
it's
was
being
so
moved,
big.
I think it should come out of there.
Yeah. That was my initial thought, that it would come out.
I think the money you're putting in there, I don't, even if there's a 1% chance, I don't think you wanna take it.
Doesn't take long to dig a trench as wide as the pipe and pull it out.
Well, we did save a lot of money on the project, so.
And if we're gonna do it in-house,
Yeah, we would do it in-house. Okay, well, that'll make that instruction. I mean, you already have the motion to remove it, so you don't need to make another motion.
Next on the agenda is approval Hanbury Lake Fishing Pier. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is another park project that Parks and Recreation Committee has been working on for a while. It actually was started a number of years ago with a few of the Parks members, Park Committee members, and Knights of Columbus actually had a couple of fundraising events, raised a couple $1,000s. Lions Club has given some monies towards this fishing pier. But we've been trying to raise some money slowly as we go along to get this project off the ground. This year we were fortunate to have a young man come forward for his Eagle Scout, Mr. Sawyer Rietfeld. He's here tonight. As part of his Eagle Scout project, I did ask him to come and make a presentation to the council. He can explain the process he's been going through over the last 6 months, trying to coordinate this fishing pier. I did give you a number, quite a bit of information in your packet, but Sawyer, why don't you come on up to the podium? And I will tell you that a lot of his coordination effort has been trying to get some pricing from contractors and vendors, and it's been a pretty good experience from what I can see. I don't know if he agrees with that, but go ahead, Sawyer.
Well, as Ray said, I'm Sawyer Rietfeld. I'm part of Troop 532 out of Norway from West of America, and I'm working for my Eagle Scout. I've been through three projects before I went to this one, going from the beach project at Hanbury, and then to this one through the city. I've gone, for the most part, it's just coordinating with the estimate through American Dogs, which we just passed plan for, I want to say, 4,800 through the rec, Parks and Rec, what would that be? The Parks and Rec
Committee.
to extend the budget of 2,500 to get the one dock in 32 feet out from the existing dock. Right now, we went through, and American Docks is planning on getting that out around June 28th. So I can get it done before my 18th birthday, which is July 2nd. I've gone through quite a bit with this, 6 months, expecting to do both the dock and the beach project. But with some permitting, I couldn't disturb the water conditions for the beach. But it's been a long travel through what I've gone through. And I hope that everyone from the area would enjoy that extended dock, the fishermen, and all that.
Thank you, Mr. Rietfeld. Any questions from council?
Thank you.
thank you.
I was just thinking maybe down the road, seeing as the Knights of Columbus had kicked in, they got another little fishing derby coming up. I believe it's this weekend, free fishing weekend. Maybe they'd be willing to kick in a little more to
Yeah,
pick up the balance.
I think that there's actually additional sections that we looked at that was on the original plan idea to kind of make an L to get it out, which, obviously that doubles the price and brings it up. So I think there's additional opportunities for raising funds, to pay this off. I will tell you this, I was down there this weekend and I took a drive through, and there was a young boy fishing off the shore So, I mean, they're fishing, the kids are fishing there, and I think they would appreciate having that dock out there, that's for sure.
Is there a motion to approve the Henry Lake Fishing Pier project?
I make that motion.
Support?
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menigino?
Yes.
That concludes the meeting for tonight. If anybody from the audience has any questions on any topic, please come forward. State your name and address for the record, and limit your remarks to 5 minutes.
I might be long-winded. However, I have a couple items. First of all, I'd like to say that I really appreciate the TV, because I've never been around very much. And also the newsletter, and I'd like to see the council maybe have a little blurb in there once in a while about what their intentions are, you know, their wishes. But the main reason I came tonight, watching the January, I realized that we never recognized Leonard Maraska for his part in saving the hydro system. You were on council at the time, in 1990, I believe, and we were faced at that time with taking the dam off of the river. We're spending lots of money on it. You remember all the arguments, Wisconsin fisheries, Michigan fisheries, FERC. It came down heavy on the city, needed new improvements. We had fines of over 500,000 facing. And at that time, our hydro, and they tried to put in 2 turbines, remember those? And neither one was any good, so we were spending money on that. And then, add to that, they were forcing us maybe to go sooner or later, take it off of the river. We already owed a lot of debt on the uprights. So it would have been a disaster for Norway. So the system that we're talking about in our meetings wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Leonard. I'm going to tell you a little story, but I got to go back in history. In the 50s, in the 40s, Norway advertised we had the lowest electrical rate in the country. And we were trying to attract business. We did. It worked. But in order to give a business coming in rate, cheap rate, we got cheap rates. I enjoyed them. I always, you know, so. But anyways, the council was kind of controlled by several business people that maneuvered this plan for attracting industry. So nothing was ever done about maintenance. Our grid would deteriorate, especially after we started having more customers, but business, everybody's home had air conditioner, you know, stuff like that. So our system was really taxed, and nothing was done about it. We kept it cheap for us, you know. We all enjoyed that, but no one thought about the grid or the distribution system. So they got in really bad shape, and so did the plant. And you notice things, we kick them when they're down. Well, we were at a low point, and FERC was gaining power. You were in on it, and so was the fisheries division, and they got after us. And I'm the oldest one here. I remember all that stuff. But it went on and on right into the 70s and into the 80s, and nothing was done about that system. In 1990, I think, the line loss, you have any idea what the percentage was? What do you think? Anyone care to take a guess?
25%.
How much?
25.
Try 55. We were buying power, pushing it into the air. Remember that? Not sure. But anyways, at that same time, the cheap taxes, we had what we called the golden goose. We were known all over America having a golden goose. Kicked out a $10,000 egg every once in a while. And where did it roll? It rolled into the Marriage Department to cover our city expenses. So everything was deteriorating.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Anybody else in the audience like to make any comments?
Yeah, I thought I should give you an update because we reached a milestone. But I've been warned by the fourth row on this side that if I take more than 2 minutes, they're gonna start to heckle me. So 2 minutes, right? We delivered the legal package for the wastewater treatment plant and the sewer side of the water sewer project on Wednesday, the 25th, to RD, after many, many months of putting that together. And they called, they had a couple things that Steve Tinty had to work on. He submitted a subsequent small package Friday, and hopefully things will be in order, and we'll be over that hump. The easement for the water is out to Mr. Popovich, and hopefully we'll get that back soon, and then we'll get that one done. So we reached a real milestone, and I wanted to be over it. Questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just got Texas on Main Street. Just wanted to go over that road tax proposal you guys approved. The current cost of that is $872 per month. And out of that, $300 is for backup support. We do not do, and I mentioned this when we first started the contract, we don't do weekly contracts. We're month to month. So if the city's not happy with our performance, you can cancel that contract and go up a bit. So I just want to make that clear that we don't do the contracts. Part of that is backup support that's in there.
What's the backup support, Chris?
The backup is, we have a device in the basement that backs up all the data on the servers. And then I believe it's 3 or 4 times a day, that data is pushed out to the internet, to the cloud, and backed up offsite. That's what you're paying for.
In
You're
case
paying-
something happened.
Yes. So you're paying that $300 per month based on the data that's stored out on the internet. So in case something could happens here, we have that data out there.
One of the things we had to do this year too is that under the new legislation, MCL for record retention, we have to maintain all the emails, all the documents. That's something that's, that's new, and so we had to figure out how the best way to
Save and
retain
store.
and recover those, yeah.
Yeah, there was a significant amount of upgrades that were done this past year that we had budgeted an $80,000 project last year in upgrades and servers and software and networking. We basically had to do that from what we had when we started here, and that was basically the adjustment. And really the reason the adjustment came from adding another service there for network monitoring, where we're actually actively and proactively monitoring the entire network at all times. So we know if anything in the network may have a hiccup, we know that before it affects anybody in the city. That was the additional increase that was added to that quote.
Did we have backup before, or just a small space of backup?
Not comfortable to answer that.
Okay.
It was yes, there was a backup.
But not
It was not maintained, it was not verified, and there was no offsite backup.
Okay.
It was basically a computer that was just taking some data
Okay.
at that time. So we've come a long way since then.
Is that information secure?
Yes. Yes, all the back information is encrypted and sent up securely to the internet. That's also encrypted down the server itself. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else in the audience like to make any comments or ask any questions? The council? Otherwise, does the council have any comment? Mr. Pop?
I'd just like to say congratulations to the boys and girls softball and baseball team for Norway to win the districts last weekend. And now they're moving on to Newberry Saturday. And good luck to them.
I'd like to thank Marvin for coming up and giving us a little history on our dam. And I've known Leonard Maraska for many years, but I never knew that, so thank you for sharing that with me and us.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Babalani?
I'd like to thank Marvin also. I didn't know any of that history, and it's interesting for me. I'd like to see Ray and Jim Wiseman get together and come up with a small lot list for the city and put it out to the Habitat for Humanity, because I know they're building a lot of houses, and we had some nice projects last time I was on the council over here on the other side of the track. And I think we would have some success with getting rid of some of these small lots that aren't really suitable for a decent size house. That's all I have.
Mr. Menegini?
Again, congratulations to the boys and girls. They're playing in Newberry next week. They both won their district. And I tell you, people, we should be spoiled. Actually, we are spoiled here, going out to the complex that we have and going around to these other complexes. It's just the difference between night and day. We got the Golden Goose down there, but we got the Diamond out at Marion Park. And thank you again, Marvin, although you told me that story not too long ago. And the other thing, Ray, I didn't notice tonight, is there anything on the board out here about this wildlife safari? No. Okay, I just got this on Google. Wildlife safari, Norway City Hall, kicking off summer reading and explore the world of nature from your library with wildlife safari, Monday, June 13th, 10 a.m. at the Dickinson County Library and 1 p.m. at the Norway City Hall. Nelson Pearson, a licensed professional animal handler and biologist, provides hands-on natural science programs with animals from around the world, which combine education and entertainment for a one-of-a-kind experience, open to all ages. And this is the first I heard of it.
The library.
Yeah, the
visits
library.
Or rooms.
Okay.
They do tell us what events are going on, but we don't,
Yeah,
We
well,
let
this
them
was
use-
handed to me earlier today, and I said I knew nothing about it, but it sounds like a nice deal for the little kids. They'll be out of
they do a
school.
wonderful job in the summer.
Although by the time this tape of this meeting gets out there, it'll probably be over with.
You need to come down when they have their snakes and spiders.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
That can't get them out of the office.
yeah, that's all I have.
Mr. Anderson, do we need to make any motion as far as Chuck Anderson is concerned, or do we need a resolution? Or are we going to put that at the next meeting? It was in our packet.
Yeah, it was just in your packet for information. Is going to do a resolution for Chuck. They've decided to move down to Traverse City area, be closer to family, and so we're going to deal with it. I gave you that information, so I don't even have to do it tonight, but I wanted to put something together for him. And then, of course, David said that the firemen were also going to have something for him, so I haven't heard back from Dave yet, though. So.
Okay, but the council will need to make a motion to approve his request for the additional 2 years.
Yeah, that would be a council, the council would need to do that.
What about don't the firemen have bylaws or something they have to go by?
Yeah, that's, they have the bylaws which we put together, they agreed to, which talks about, he's got 23 years. He requested, because of all, and he's done a tremendous amount
Yes,
of
he
work.
has.
Brought a lot of money into the city through the fire department. He just wanted consideration to allow him to get to the 25th year. The difference in the longevity, it's not like in the MERS program where it's added onto a pension, which the annuity, which is run year in and year out. It is a one-time longevity payment, and it gets to a certain level and he gets paid. So he's at 23. He's asking the council to let him go to 25 so that he could have that payment.
Well, I think we certainly ought to do that. I don't know if we need any further thought. I'm just going to do that at the next meeting and go on with it.
Yeah, we can do it at a future meeting, or if you can do it tonight. I mean, I gave you the information, so I think it's pretty self-explanatory, as far as
What's the difference in pay for him?
We should, just not to interrupt you, but we should have Grant look at that too before we do anything like that.
Sure. And I can get you that information, Doc.
Okay, we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting then. Can we discuss personnel in closed session?
nice grant that way.
Grant? We discussed positions and personnel. Mr. Babalani brought up some questions about personnel, and I was asking if we could discuss that in closed session.
Well, since it's not on the agenda, and I think brought up
Okay.
at this point, I see it on the executive session, the property acquisition. At this point, I don't think we should, if it's not on the agenda, I don't think it should be appropriately brought up at this point. If we want to put it on the next agenda, those personal, if those individuals that you're looking to discuss, asked to be in closed session.
I think, don't you have to let them know too?
Yeah, I mean, you can't
Right.
do it without giving some heads up on
Yeah.
some of these issues.
Okay, I thought we could discuss that as well.
It has to stick with what's on the agenda for tonight.
Any other comments tonight on any topic?
Me?
Yeah.
Just briefly, I think we heard earlier, nobody wants to hear an attorney talk very long. I've just been given a hand with the Friends of Norway. Just a reminder, folks, the 125 Festival, and sticking with Mr. Pollard's theme for the night, I think which we're all taking away from is we have an amazing history here in the city of Norway. We're celebrating our 125-year anniversary this summer, and this nonprofit group, Friends of Norway, has been created to help celebrate this 125-year sesquicentennial. Just a reminder that pre-sale tickets for that event end on June 15th. The group is still looking for volunteers to pull off a celebration of this magnitude. Obviously, the more help that they can get, the better. Tricia is been and has been willing to help. So if anybody wants to volunteer in the community, looking forward to having as much volunteers to assist and as much community involvement, because it is our centennial, it is our community, and helping out and giving back is another way to show pride in your community as well. So that's coming up here in a couple of weeks. I don't know exactly when this will air, but go see Trish at City Hall and pitch in and give a hand. And thank you again, Marvin, for the history lesson tonight. It's always interesting to see where you've been, because I think it helps to give you a clearer picture where you ought to go in the future. Thank you.
And once again, thank you for the Quesquicentennial Committee, the great job that they're doing, and if you want a cheap ticket, better get it before June 15th. Mr. Anderson, any questions or comments?
I don't have anything else other than the volunteers. We're looking for volunteers.
Anybody at that table want to say anything? If not, we need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion, we go into an executive session.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Dr. Hayes. Yes or no, Doc?
Yes.
Are you guys coming back in, or?
Yes, we're coming back in.
Closed session is over. No motions will be made except for adjournment.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani? Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Do we have to make a motion to excuse Mark?
Too late, the meeting's adjourned.